All right, my friends, here we are working on commission. So, hope you're having a great day. Thanks for stopping by and checking it out. I'm glad you are here. If you want to chat, hopefully the chat is open and working. Yes, it looks like it is. So, feel free to comment and I will try to respond as I see your comments. Now, this piece is for a former student of mine. He's given this as a gift to his sister, and it's a picture of them together as kids, and their granddad's barn is in the background. Their granddad's tractor's there, and then all the animals they grew up with is there as well. So, really enjoying doing this piece. I taught both of them, and it's really cool just now that they're grown and kind of on their own. It's just cool to reconnect with them, and very grateful for the opportunity to do this piece of artwork for them. So, yep. Oop, I'm running low on my Terpenoid. Let me see. I got a new bottle here, and I'm pretty sure I can make a good mess of this, but I don't want to pour this on while I'm working on their work. So I'm going to do this over the trash can. I will be back in just a second. Yeah. There we go. Alright. Definitely made a hot mess of that. Fantastic. Something about mineral spirits, they do not behave like water. They have a very different viscosity. So spillage is pretty much guaranteed. Unless you use a pipette, which if I were smart, that's what I would have done. But I'm rarely accused of being that. So, yeah. Stick that little chemical right there. Alright, now we're back. Ba-boom. Alright. So, for those of you who've never watched my channel before, I use this stuff called Terpenoid. Little mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits, semi-odorless mineral spirits, and use it to blend the colored pencil. Super helpful for colored pencil work. It speeds up your shading quite a bit, which is nice. Alright, so you can see this little tree over here with the lamb behind it. I'm just going to take some of this Terpenoid and start to work that in with a Q-tip, and you can just see how fast the binding agent dissolves. So, and it almost behaves like watercolors. It's like a little bit like magic. You can call it the magic sauce here. And it is a little bit challenging with a Q-tip to be really tight on your details, but for the bigger spaces it's really good. And you can use a blending stump to get all the little itty-bitty areas or where you need to protect your other colors. Use a blending stump, and you won't get a lot of Terpenoid in there, but when you're working on small details, it's just a better bet to go with the smaller tip there to get in all the little small places. So now I don't know how long it has taken me to get this far in the process. I would say probably, I sketched each of those animals. I did 2 sheets of paper. So I think there are 12 animals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12 animals. I did 6 animals on each page, and I just did kind of quick sketches of them. And then I scanned those in, and in Photoshop I took their photograph of them as children. I took a rendering of the barn and I went online and searched for the make and model of the tractor and found a decent photo to work from, and kind of put all of that together into a Photoshop document with some hay bales and things like that. Then sent that kind of mock-up Frankenstein piece of artwork to the client, and then they reviewed it, and they were too big in the original. I'm going to show you my drawings real quick. These were my 2 pages of drawings of the animals. So what I used was an alcohol marker to draw these, and then I inked them with a black pen. You can see my first pig there was a bit of a disaster because my my marker was so full of ink, it just started dripping everywhere. So I got myself a paper towel and figured out that. And so these are all of the different animals, and I just scanned these 2 documents into Photoshop, and I copied and clipped them, pieced them together with all the photographic parts. So I had a photograph of the barn. I had a photograph, well, the barn and the tractor were together, but I couldn't see much of the tractor because it was kind of parked in the barn, but I could see the front grill. And so I went online and started doing a search for this tractor, and eventually found it, and eventually found a picture that was workable. And so I used that, and then the photo he had given me, them together. And in the original concept, they were super big, like they were really big, and the animals were kind of small and everything. And he came back and said, we're a little bit too dominant in the scene. We wanted to be kind of part of the scene. And so then I brought them down, and I moved some of the animals around, and came up with this pretty agreeable composition. I really am glad that it turned out the way that it did. And he said he loved it. And so here we are now at the final. To get to the final, let me remember how I did this. Oh my gosh, why is my brain blanking on my final? Oh, I took the final drawing and I printed it out in sections. I think I had to print out 4 sheets of paper and kind of piece them together perfectly. Like I used an X-Acto blade and cut them and taped them all together so that everything lined up just like the original art, or the original kind of Frankenstein piece that I had done in Photoshop. So I printed that out on a piece of normal just printer paper, and then I got my watercolor paper and I got a light table, like a little light table, and I just traced my Photoshop Frankenstein image on there with this, I think it's a mineral orange or pumpkin orange Prismacolor color pencil. And I like working with that because it's a medium tone that I can see very easily on the page. That's why I choose that color, and it's a warm tone because this is a warm feeling kind of vibe for this piece. Obviously it's all the animals that they grew up with and that they love, their relationship, all of that. So that makes me think of things that are warm. So that's how I chose that color. I love that color just independently on its own. Like I like the way that the pigment ends up on the page, and it just registers with me emotionally and visually. I connect with the color really easily, so I use that as my base color. I've used other colors before. Some, like I like goldenrod as far as the color itself, but it's too light on the eyes. I don't get quite enough punch, and this actually helps me to visualize because it's kind of a medium tone. Like if I were to black and white this, it would be kind of a medium gray tone. It helps me visualize the lights and the darks that are going to be around it a little bit better. I don't know why, that's just how I see it. So that's why I chose the color I chose for the Prismacolor. I need to pause for just a second and get a hand guard my paper. Yeah, one of the things that's really helpful is having something to block the oils from your hand. You don't want that getting in your watercolor paper, or you don't want to be spreading other pigment around, like little bits of Prismacolor that have come off while you're coloring a certain section. You do not want those smearing into the parts that you don't. like. So that's super important. All right, now got some dark areas. Let me pull out my whole bucket. Now, for my Prismacolors, when I'm actually drawing, I have this old school. If you know what this is, kudos to you. If you don't know, Case Logic was a CD company, CD organization company. So what I mean by that is they would sell products for organizing your CDs, which is how we old folks used to listen to music, and that was after we were listening to tapes, and that was after we were listening to 8-tracks. And if you know what an 8-track is, man, you are pushing the años, bro. You've got a lot of years under your belt if you know what 8-tracks are. So I know what 8-tracks are. Or vinyl. Everybody knows what vinyl is, though, because it's so classic. But yes, I put a cigar box inside my Case Logic. Okay, so there you go. And a nice wooden cigar box, and then I got a lot of colors there. I'm also working on an organization for my colored pencils. You might be able to see in the background up there, up at the top. That is my old Prismacolor or color organization thing. So whenever I needed a new color, I would just grab a new one out of there and make sure that I purchased and replenished from the colors. However, I have a better solution now. It's these beautiful wooden drawers that I got on Amazon, and I'm gonna be using that from now on. And it just it's such a beautiful, clean design. The drawers are so beautiful. It has a very Japanese aesthetic, which I think that also has a little bit of a Japanese aesthetic, which is what I was going for. There is something about the economy, efficiency, beauty, and elegance of just the Japanese culture and the way they handle their artistry, and even business and culture in general is so beautiful to me, and I want to emulate that. I feel like I'm so American, so American, that I just collect and collect and collect and collect, and never really intentionally reduce the waste, like get rid of the things that I don't use. I just accumulate more and more. I'm going to sharpen my pencil here for just a second. That I think is unhealthy. I'm confident it's unhealthy for me and people in general. When you do not get rid of the waste that is around you and in your life, you are constantly living with things, products that you don't need, and that weighs you down. Emotionally, it weighs you down. And if you've ever heard of Marie Kondo, she has the KonMari method of cleaning up. She goes into great detail about how that we tend to surround ourselves with a lot of things that we don't love or don't bring us joy. And I am certainly the key offender in that regard. And so the Japanese culture is very much about clarifying, getting a cleared mind and a clear state of being, so that you can just be more effective and be, more efficient. Okay, there we go. I was looking for a dark brown. I'm looking for a black. I love this color. This is Black Cherry, and the reason why I love it for this is because this is a red barn. And so if you're going to be doing blacks, you want rich colors in there beyond just black. If you do just black, it's going to look dark the way you want it to look dark. But if you add some of these other tones, it's not super obvious that they're there, but it does tie in. It gives it a really nice connection to the other colors. And since it's a red barn, this Black Cherry is going to have some of that red in there. And say I can't even tell the difference, and that is probably true. You probably can't tell the difference, but I promise you, when the client gets their artwork, it will sing, and more importantly, when it leaves my hand, I will have tremendous pride in the fact that I have created the best piece of artwork I possibly can. So I'm actually going to start with a little bit of black cherry. I've also got some Tuscan red and some dark brown. One of the things about Prismacolors, and one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about working with Prismacolors, is the layering ability. Now, you can layer with lots of different materials. You can even layer with crayons. In fact, I teach my younger students how to get multiple different colors out of your crayon box by layering. The difference I find with Prismacolors is that they are a little bit more waxy. Not waxy like a crayon, but there are other brands of colored pencils out there that when it comes to blending, the binding agent, whatever it may be, is not as harmonious. Like, there's not that same harmony between two colors. You're sort of sharing the space instead of becoming one new color. But when you have Prismacolors, and especially with the Turpenoid helping to blend them, it's a little bit more like a watercolor where the colors just really truly mix together. They really blend. And so that form of layering is more than just how you might layer a dry medium like chalk pastel or something like that. Now, I will say you can use the Turpenoid with oil pastels. You can use it with anything that has kind of a waxy, oily kind of consistency. Any binding agent that has that, if the mineral spirits is going to break that down, then the pigments are going to kind of blend together a lot more like watercolors. So, and the reason why I like that is you get better continuity of color. You look like you're actually created a whole new color. It doesn't look like two colors kind of competing in the same space until your eyes just accept the fact that they're a new color. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I process what I'm seeing as I'm creating with it. One of the reasons why I get such a tremendous satisfaction working with the Prismacolors. And no, they're not paying me to say this, but the reality in my mind is you don't have to pay me to say the truth. That's not how this thing works. So these are just and I've used a lot of different brands of colored pencils, a lot of different brands, and I've heard the arguments for other brands and tried them, and just I respectfully disagree. There's not a better colored pencil that I've ever found on the market. They're certainly high quality. There's no doubt about that, but the way that I work, this just fits my mentality and my creative process so much better. Here I am with my paper, not even using it for its intended purpose there. I want to have my hand resting on this scrap paper. So that's just my 2 cents. If you're in the colored pencil market, if you're in the market for some colored pencils, now they aren't cheap. My goodness, they are not cheap. They are expensive, like $1.50 a pencil in 2026, maybe more. I haven't bought pencils in a little while because I tend to stock up. But last I remember, they were $1.50, maybe $1.60. It's been a minute again since I bought them, but and I don't usually buy the whole big packs. Maybe to get a collection started, that's a great idea. Like when I purchase for my classroom for my students, I certainly buy in the big packs because you do save a little bit and you get a good variety of colors. But honestly, once you have that 72 pack, there are going to be some colors that you run through so fast, and other colors will be with you for years before you get, before you work through them. So it's really, if you're going to be working with them, you're going to be buying singles to replace. Black is a color that gets used a whole lot. For me, dark brown is a color that gets used a whole lot. Indigo blue gets used a whole lot. Crimson red gets used a whole lot. Sienna brown gets used a whole lot. There's just certain colors. I love, is it slate? Blue slate? Something. There's a periwinkle or a blue slate. Yeah, it's blue slate. This one, I use that a ton. Cloud blue or sky blue. I can't remember exactly, but some of the blues. The dark green, the grass green. Just those colors just tend. Tuscan red, oh my goodness, I use that one a lot. So white, of course, gets used a lot. Beige gets used a lot. So those colors just I know are going to be on repeat, and I've purchased probably hundreds more of those in my career than any of the other colors. That's just, it's going to be a reality when you're using them. Okay, so that's a pretty even coat. That was the black cherry. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of Tuscan red, I believe. That's what this is. Yep, put some of the Tuscan red in there on top of it. So the black cherry already gave it that dark, rich color anyway, so I haven't even approached the black. And so what I like to do is I like to get the color kind of locked in a little bit, and then come back and really punch in the darkest darks with the black. I like to reserve that for the end, and that kind of guarantees that I get a nice warm kind of section of this dark red before making a decision as to which parts should be so dark that they look pitch black. Because I don't think that, even though in the photo this is probably an even toned kind of dark gray or black in the doorway, I gotta bring some life to it, man. I gotta put that rich color in there. So, it's interesting to me, the creative process of getting to this point, because right now all we're doing is just adding the color. I mean, so much of the details have already been worked out, and so it's not a paint by numbers kind of a thing, but I do have in mind that it's a red barn. Now, the photograph I had to work from, the barn is so old in the photograph that it's completely gray, weathered, all the paint is off. But the client let me know it was a red barn at one point. And so we're going to try to get an aged reddish color. I don't think we're going to bring it to crimson red, but it's going to be a challenge, right? I'll probably need to get some photo reference and look at some red barns, some antique red barns, to be able to emulate that kind of idea. Now, the reason why I'm not worrying about that here is because I know that the brand new color of it was red. This ultimately is going to look like a black rectangle here in the middle of the page. And I just want to be able to kick in some of that color. Now, this is a dark brown, so put a little bit of dark brown. And what the dark brown, the reason why I'm putting that in there is to mute some of the red tones, and you can't tell how red the red tones are until you put the terpenoid on there, but this allows it to kind of dull it down, because anytime colors are in shadow, there's a bit of a dulling effect to it. And if you're in a barn with any kind of atmosphere, dust that's been kicked up or whatever, it's just going to have a little bit less vibrancy in there for the colors. You're going to get a hazier feel. And maybe that's overkill. Maybe that's something that nobody will ever even think about when they look at the final, but I think about it. People might look at it and go, it doesn't look dusty in there, bro. And I'll be like, yeah, you're probably right. But I was thinking about it while I was creating it. And while I was choosing my colors, that was going through my brain. So, one of the most helpful things when I'm watching other artists work is seeing their process. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I found on Pinterest an artist who was doing these skull faces. They were faces of skulls, but he was animating the qualities of the face so that they actually had facial expressions. What was so beautiful about the illustrations, was that these skulls that you normally don't think of as being able to communicate the outward emotion that is normally communicated because of the muscle and the fleshy parts of it, you just don't think that you're going to get a skull to be able to do that. Well, this artist, what I loved about his work was he had this beautiful spread of drawings, and he had written notes about what he was thinking as he was drawing it. So he had actually drawn a couple of fleshy options, meaning more human looking, so that he could kind of capture the expression. But then he was talking about different things that he did and what effect they had. So he talked about the pupils, the size of the pupils, and what it communicated, because the skull obviously doesn't have a pupil, but he could draw a small circle in there and say that it was like an illuminated light, and basically the smaller the pupil, the more intense the emotional, almost like anger. But he also did like different emotions like sly or clever or laughing, and so you had all of these human emotions coming out of these skulls. And the thing that really impacted me was his process for getting there was so cool, and I learned a lot from it. So I like that kind of information. Now, if any of you have ever seen The Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, one of the reasons why that has become such a powerful piece of artwork is because you get some insight into the thought process of the artist. And I ask my students this: if you could look at a Ferrari, right? You could go on the lot, a car lot, a Ferrari car lot, and you could look at all the Ferraris that they have. Would that be more interesting to you to go and look at the lot and see all the cars there, or would you rather go to the place where they're actually designing and manufacturing those Ferraris? And probably those are two different facilities, but invariably they say, well, it'd be way cooler to go to the design place. And I asked them why. Why would that be cooler? And they'd be like, well, because you get to see. And they say that, but there's a lot more to it than just they get to see, because you can go on a car lot and you can see, right? You can see the final product. You can notice that it's beautiful. You can understand, wow, it's a gorgeous vehicle. That's amazing detail. Wow, look at the interior. It's made out of leather. And, oh, it looks like it goes so fast, and this and that. And there are probably some car nuts who are listening to this and going, that's not nearly as fun as driving it. And I agree. But from an artistic perspective and from a design perspective, not even from the engineering side, although that is a whole nother part of it. From a design perspective, what you're seeing when you go to the design facility is so much more than, or it's giving you so much more information about what's going on than the actual final product. And this is why I think the Vitruvian Man became such an iconic piece of work, is because we knew that Leonardo da Vinci was a phenomenal artist, and he went to great lengths to study and understand anatomy, spooky in a sense, lengths to learn about anatomy. So then, is it enough to marvel at his created works, or do we desire to understand even more than just appreciating the beauty? And my contention is we desire more. We want to know how that happened. We want to know more about the inner workings of how we got from A to B. And I think that's really compelling. I think it's good to be curious in that regard too. And as I've gotten older, there are subjects that I used to either be intimidated by or not have much interest in because I didn't have a very high aptitude for it. Now, art has always been one of those skills that I guess I was eager to develop or grow in, but there are aspects within art that really challenge me, and I have somewhat avoided. So art history was one of those things that I avoided for years and years and years, and it just so happened, and I believe this was God intervening on my behalf, helping me to grow and become more aware. But the school that I now teach at required me to teach art history, so I had very little context to go from. I was basically starting at square one. I did not have to take art history going through college, at least not to a degree where I learned a significant amount of information that helped me to teach it. I certainly felt like I was out of my depth. But what was great about it was I was teaching it to younger students. And so the curriculum, or the things that they gave me, the materials that they gave me, actually were quite easy to understand. And that made it a lot less intimidating or a lot less daunting. And I think one of the things that always tripped me up about art history was how in the world do you select which pieces you're going to look at? Because there are so many pieces of art that have been created over the years, and who gets to decide what looks the best or is the most relevant. And to be completely honest, most of the time it's not even what looks the best. And you might say, well, that seems really strange since art is by nature a visual form of creativity and creation. You would think that the best looking things would be the ones that are chosen. But really, there's often the story around the artwork or the context within which that art piece came to be, both created and revealed to people. And one of the things that I'm learning currently as I'm getting my teaching license, one of the most significant things that I'm learning is that art does not live in a vacuum. And that might seem really obvious to some people, but it doesn't matter if I create the most beautiful artwork in the world, but I have no audience. Nobody's there to see it. Or if I have something to say and nobody's there to hear it, then that message really cannot gain traction or find merit. But if not only I have an audience, but the story I'm telling or the artwork I'm producing is resonating in the hearts and minds of the audience, then you start to get a tremendous amount of momentum. So I personally think this is why people do well when they draw celebrities. Not that everybody loves celebrities, but what you have is common knowledge. You have a shared experience, and whether people like the person, the famous person that you're drawing, or whether they don't like it, you at least have an audience that is connected by something. And what I've found personally in my own art journey, I was able to make a pretty good income from doing pet portraits. And the model that I chose, and this is a little bit of a side note to what I'm actually talking about, but the model that I chose was actually not COVID proof. So when, meaning the model for my business and how I acquired new clients was by going out to craft fairs and painting at craft fairs. And when COVID hit, it basically turned the spigot of my clientele off. Now, I had already done hundreds of pet portraits by that point, so I had return clients or previous clients that were returning to get gifts for friends and family or new pets that they were wanted to commission. So it's not like everything completely vanished because I had been doing it for about 5 years. But I will say that I had enough clientele that I was considering giving up teaching art to pursue just being a professional artist full time. And I think had COVID not hit, I think that I know I was tracking. The numbers were definitely tracking towards that surpassing my income as an art teacher. So that was really encouraging. Why am I saying that? Because what happened at these craft fairs is I would be painting a client's pet right there at the craft fair. So I'm live painting. I would have samples of other pets that I had painted on 16 by 20 canvases hanging up. And I would have, just a little bit of information out, where you could get in touch with me and all that stuff. At the end of one of these craft fairs, and it was a huge craft fair, they had like 30,000 people, and I'm not joking, that's not an exaggeration. They had 30,000 people come out to this craft fair. It was dollar for dollar the best craft fair that I've ever been a part of. I mean, they literally had to hire security. They had food trucks out there. I mean, it was just fantastic craft fair. And there were furniture makers and candle makers and soap makers and clothing, brands. And, I was the only pet portrait artist out there. So here I am. I'm out there painting. And there was another artist who was selling her prints and everything sitting across from me. This was the second year that I did this. And at the end of the day, she said, "Do you ever get sick of that question?" And I said, "Well, what question?" She said, "Can you paint my dog? Can you paint my pet?" And I said, no, it didn't even, like, it doesn't bother me at all because I know that the light bulb has gone off in their mind. They just realized, wait a second, that could be my pet. And it was driving her crazy. I didn't realize that. All day long she was hearing people come up to me and asking the same question over and over. But that's exactly what the craft fair was designed to do. That's why I did it and why it had been so successful. This was like my I guess I was about 3 or 4 years into doing it. So I had my painting process down, I had my client, my invoicing and all of that stuff. I had my website, all of that stuff had been worked out. And the only thing I had to do was go to these craft fairs. I would usually do at least 2 craft fairs a month. And I would be painting, and people would say, could you paint my pet? I would say, yeah, sure can. Here, just put your name on the list, and I would show them the pricing and everything. And I would, on a bad craft fair day, I would probably get 3 or 4 commissions. On this one with 30,000 people, I think I got over 20 commissions that day. And then all I would have to do is spend the next, series of weeks just fulfilling those commissions. So it was a great little thing. But what I'm getting at with all of this was the light bulb going off in the people's heart and mind of them going, wait, that could be mine. Wait, that could be my pet. And this is what people are longing for. Like, they're longing for that connection. Wait, there could be something here together. And pet portraits is one of those things. People love their pets. We live in a time here in America, at least, where people treat their pets. It's unbelievable, like the level of care and the level of love, and people consider their pets a part of the family, and they have personalities, and people bond with them, and so people connect and bond with artwork visually. But there has to be an emotional tie-in. I mean, I could probably ask you, what's your favorite children's book? And I bet within a matter of minutes, you could probably have 3 or 4 that really just stood out to you. I could probably ask you, what's your favorite album cover? I bet you could think. Now, when I say album cover, there's so many emotions that will flood into that, from the visual of the actual album cover, right, to the music and the experiences, all the remembrances of the music from that album. I think of albums like Counting Crows. I think the name of the album was August and Everything After. But that album was an album that I could just put on repeat. And I still remember the stylings and the color of that album cover. It's right there in my mind. Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. I remember that. I remember the neat offset colors of her face kind of and being washed out but still there. Jagged Little Pill, and I used to listen to that album on repeat over and over. Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that one, I would have that on repeat and just listen to that over and over and over again. Bruce Springsteen, my first album, Born in the USA. Whitney Houston, I still remember the first album I've got of hers was it was orange, and she was wearing a white dress, and I believe she had a white flower in her hair, and there was what a cool time just in my life. But that music signified a period of time in my life. And so Paul Simon, Graceland, oh my goodness. And I remember that because a family friend of ours introduced me to him, and it was so cool because he was an older kind of mentor that I looked up to, and this was one of those times where I had started to get into music, and so I had some opinions about music of my own and things that I liked, and we would just be riding together in his car, and he's blaring this sound out, and he knew not only the music, he knew about the album and how it was created, and he was able to tell me the stories that Paul Simon was singing about. And I went out and I got the album for myself and I listened to it, and so not only was it these great stories that Paul Simon was telling about his experience in Africa and the sounds that he created, which were phenomenal. One of the best albums of all time, in my opinion, is just phenomenal. Paul Simon's Graceland. Beautiful. More beautiful when you know the stories that inspired the songs. But then for me, it was a shared memory of riding in a car with a mentor that I highly respected and looked up to and valued in my life. And so that album means more to me because of all the memories associated with it. And that context impacts people's hearts and minds collectively. So you've got to have the artwork. It's got to be of a level of aptitude and skill that people can respect it, but it doesn't have to be the most beautiful artwork in the world, but it does have to resonate with an audience. So you've got to have the visual chops, like the skill. You've got to have the skill to a certain level for sure, but then you've got to have an audience, and then you have to have the ability to connect with that audience and connect with them. When you have those ingredients, and there's probably more to it than that, but when you have those key elements, you're really well on your way to providing artwork that means a lot to people. And I think about this piece right now. Obviously, my client and his sister are going to be impacted by it, but their mom and dad are going to be impacted by it. And then anybody who visits their home, anybody that knew their family growing up, anybody that had any interaction with all these pets that sees this artwork is going to be just impacted. It's going to move their heart. It's going to move their soul, right? So that's exciting to me. So this artwork, while I love producing it, no doubt I enjoy producing the artwork, but there's so much more to it than just that. Okay, let's go ahead and hit this thing with some Terpenoid. I'm going to go ahead and take this green. Okay, there's green on here from the tree. Now, green and red are complementary colors, right? So when you mix your red and your green together, they kind of offset each other. You're going to get a brown, and you're going to get kind of a dullish color. That's perfect for in here. And a lot of this green is actually going to stay on the Q-tip. A lot of it won't go into the artwork, but it's okay in this case to be blending it. Now, I wouldn't do that in the sky where I want it to look crystal clear and beautiful, but for an area like the interior of a barn that's darkened and obscured, that's totally cool. And so what that does is, I know this is silly economics, but it allows me to keep this tip clean longer, which means I get a little bit more use out of my materials and supplies, which if you're a business owner, you can appreciate the value of making the most of your resources. That really helps you be profitable. It's just smart, good practice, Oh, I am loving the way this is coming together. Now, this is dark. Compared to everything else on the page, it looks almost black, which is what I wanted. I didn't want it to be pitch black because obviously some light is going to filter in there. I did use some actual black around the edges, but I didn't use black in the center. That way the black cherry and the brown and the, what was the other, the dark, the Tuscan red could start to blend. So you see there's a little slight shift in tone from the edges around the doorway into the center, and that makes it warm. It makes it feel like there's a little bit of glow happening in there. And it's really subtle. It's not obvious, but it adds this invitation to see what's inside the door. A visual invitation of, hey, there's room in here to be explored. So that's one of the things when we go through our art history series, especially in fourth grade, we look at Court of the Lions at, I'm going to probably ruin the name of this, but Alhambra Palace, I believe, in Granada, Spain. If you look at the Court of Lions during the daytime and then you look at it at nighttime, and we talk about this with students, the visual change that happens is stunning. And all the places that look kind of dark and not menacing, but just dark and obscured, they flip at nighttime. They glow with this warm, inviting light. And I talk to my students about, hey, if you're driving through a neighborhood in the evenings, as the sun is setting, getting down, it's dusk, and then all the way into evening, and the lights in the homes start to come on, there is an intrigue that happens that's not there during the daytime. During the daytime, you drive past homes and, oh, those are just homes and those are just things that you're driving past. But at nighttime, when you're driving or you're walking through your neighborhood and everything is dark, but those lights are glowing, now all of a sudden there is this attraction and this invitation to look. And if you're at all like me, you kind of sit there and go, I wonder what life is like inside that house. You know, I wonder what's going on in there. I wonder if they're having a warm meal together, if they're having a good conversation at the dinner table, or I wonder if they're watching the game, or I wonder if they're playing games, or I wonder if it's a late night at work, or if they're reading a good book, or, you know, there's any number of things that you're like, my mind just kind of thinks of what story might be unfolding, you know, that I don't know about. I'm standing out here on the outside just kind of guessing and thinking, you know, but what could it be that's going on in there? And that is such a powerful tool for storytelling. Light and dark is so powerful. And when we look at the Court of Lions, you will see, if you look at a daytime photo and a nighttime photo, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It looks so much more inviting at nighttime. It looks impressive during the daytime. You can see a lot more details, and so there's a lot more visual information that you're getting during the daytime for sure. But it is way more inviting or welcoming at nighttime. And that's just so interesting. And I think architects have to think about that stuff, right? How's this building going to look during the daytime? How's it going to look at night? How is that going to change the way this building feels? So in this case, I'm drawing this during this scene is obviously during the daytime. So then you have these darkened spaces. Now, they're not going to look particularly inviting, right? It's going to look kind of dark. But if you add a little bit of a tonal shift and allow that area to have a little bit of luminance, just a little subtle luminance, it changes the feeling of the space and makes it a little bit more inviting, a little bit less intimidating. So it's so interesting to be looking at this live with my eyes and then to look at it on screen, because I can see from my monitor basically what this is recording. And I can tell you the reds are coming across on screen much more powerfully than they are for me here as I'm working on it. So, yep, it's pretty cool to see the difference there. All right, now down here, there's another trick that I do. When I get next to a character in the scene, or a personality, or a pig, or a dog, as it were here, I want to take my black and I want to really darken in this area right next to them. What that does is it makes the line where they stand out very crisp, and I tend to push it a little bit more where two sections meet. So like where the ear meets the head, I kind of stay there a little bit longer, punch in a little bit more color, and then when we get to the tips of the ears, I kind of lighten it up a little bit and try to taper that line. Same thing here, I darken it a little bit more, and then up at the tips of the ears, I lighten it up a little bit. Now what that does is it makes the ears feel different. Okay, if I just did a black border all the way around the ears, that would make them feel very bold, but it would not give them the sense that at the tip of the ear they're just a little bit lighter weight, right? When you think about like with animals, like same thing here, like in that crease, I'm going to punch that dark, but then I'm going to release that. I'm not going to keep that going towards the tip of the ear. Same thing in here where the ear kind of meets the cheekbone or the jawline right there. I'll punch in some black, and then I pull it away so that it tapers. And I don't know if that may not register a ton on screen, but I can definitely tell, and it changes how that feels. Now here I want to take this, I don't want this to look like solid black chunk. I want that to look like a blend and transition up into this redder area. Okay, so that gets a little bit more attention to blend that out. Same thing here. I don't want that to look like it's an outline. Even though it is, I want to hide that outline a little bit. So yeah. Put the edge. Now these are two doors that are kind of turned in. Double doors that are kind of bent in, so they're going to get a good amount of shadow here. And I'm just going to take the black and I'm just going to kind of loosely come through here and put this in. Now this is a very different approach than what I took before. The reason why is I want to get a little bit of directionality here to this. Now I guess our eye level line is probably somewhere around in here. So I may kind of give a little bit of attention to that in the way that I do this. That probably would have been wise. Actually, eye level line, I'm going to put it right there. I got to keep it consistent. So this eye, okay, the circled eye on the Dalmatian is going to become my eye level line. That seems to be about right. Like, obviously I can't see the horizon line in the back, but I would guesstimate that if I could see out into the distance, this would make sense for the eye level line to be right about here. Why am I talking about that? Well, because on this door, as I was kind of doing these hash marks, I realized, wait a second, those hash marks would not, the direction of that door would, can be emphasized a little bit more if I pay attention to the eye level line. Now, because this door is tilting back into this space, now what I'm doing is I'm kind of using a little bit of one-point perspective mentality in how I shade this. So right here at the eye level line, it's perfectly horizontal. But then, as I go below the eye level line, my diagonals are going to shift. And I'm just kind of trying to point these shading lines sort of towards the eye. Now I'll do the same thing here. Okay, and I'm not going to do it super drastic because the door is not holding to some, you know, one-point perspective because it's slanted. The perspective changes, but being mindful of one-point perspective when you're shading also has a dynamic effect. So, okay, now this is a aged barn, so we're going to get some aged red, so we're going to get a little bit of this Tuscan red in there. And one of the things about aged red color is it does not feel like a shiny red car. Okay, so crimson red, although it's the best red in my opinion in the whole crayon box, in the whole colored pencil selection, it certainly is the most vivid fire engine red, Ferrari red. It's just beautiful. It might not be the right choice for this, and sometimes it's hard, right? Because look at this beautiful red. Oh, it's just gorgeous. That's like a Wolfpack red. That's like an NC State Wolfpack red. That's a beautiful color. That might be the prettiest color we've ever seen. I don't know. It's certainly better than Crybaby Blue. Certainly better than that. You know, I just made somebody angry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you angry. All right, so here's the weird thing. Here's a sienna brown. It's got a little bit of red in it, but I'm thinking a little bit more of this mineral orange, which is what I started kind of tracing with, might be appropriate. I'm going to put my Q-tip down. I'm going to sharpen these two colors, my sienna brown and my pumpkin orange. It's not mineral orange. There is a mineral orange, but this is pumpkin orange, and it's already sharp enough. Okay, so I'm thinking that mixing this mineral orange, maybe the sienna brown, and the Tuscan red is going to get me a dark, muted red tone that I might be happy with. Oh, forgot my one-point perspective idea. There we go. Notice I'm a little bit of gap here in the coloring. This is just a little bit lighter. I'm doing that so that the edge of that door feels a little more prominent. And I may not end up liking that. So I might have to come back and color over that, but I'm keeping my option there in case I like it, because it's easy enough to cover up if I don't like it. Oh yes, 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 yes. Yes, this has the sienna brown is a reddish brown. So I can tell that that color is something about that is making me happy right now. I'm like, oh, okay, 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 that's what I was looking for. So it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I don't even know exactly. I know kind of what I want, but I don't know if I'm on the right path to get there. So I have this concept in my mind of the color that I want, but then I have to kind of try some colors to see if I'm gonna get what I want out of what I'm doing. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. Now I'm gonna come back with a little bit more of this Tuscan red. I'm actually only gonna do that because honestly, the sienna brown gave me a little bit better happiness. So I'm gonna use this Tuscan red as kind of my shadow from the door hinge, from the door frame, I mean. And then a little bit of black. We're definitely going to pop a little bit of black right here and right here to crisp up that edge, because this part of the door is certainly starting to get back into the darker area, and so it's going to be more shaded, and then that shadow is going to kind of be on a diagonal. Now I got to tell you, I saw the coolest thing that an artist did in an art challenge where they only take 2 colors, markers, and they take a coloring page, like just from a coloring book. So the drawing is already on there, and it's in black and white, really bold. And in this case, it was like some kitchen shelves with some plates on it and some cups hanging on little hooks underneath the bottom of the shelf. And there were some things. There was a vase with some flowers in it and stuff. And they only used 2 colors. They used purple and orange. And they were subtle orange, like it was more like a salmon orange, and the purple was a warmer, a little bit more reddish purple. But the challenge was make it look like sunlight is coming through a window on the scene, and so they drew like little squares for like the windows, and then the window pane was in the negative space, and they colored all the negative space black, and all the positive space where the light was coming through the window they colored with that salmon pinkish orange color. And I thought, wow, that is a really unique challenge. First time I had seen it, and it was on YouTube. And one of the cool things that I noticed was the artist did a really good job at depicting the ray of light, like where the light would come through the window, hit all of the objects, be on a diagonal, how objects that were in the foreground would catch light in it, like the line would not just go straight, it would change according to the surface it was hitting. So the cups, obviously, even though it was a straight ray of light around the cup, it would curve and it would change where it was hitting, like it wouldn't line up perfectly with the diagonal that's on the wall behind it. And they kept it consistent so that when the final thing was done, it actually looked like it was a dark room. It kind of looked like it could have been early morning. So everything in shadow was this purple color, and then these rays of light were coming in, and they were either really early morning light or late afternoon light coming in, because it had that warm salmon pinkish orange color to it. And man, to look at the first coloring page in black and white and then to look at the final was such a massive and amazing transition. It really was impressive. I thought that's a pretty cool challenge. I might like to do that, especially now because if you have watched my last live sessions, you may know I'm going to be doing the Graphic Novel Pro Series with SVS. That's storytelling, visual storytelling, I think. I can't remember exactly, but it's created and hosted by Jake Parker. who I love his style. It's very playful and fun. He does a lot of robots too, which are really cool. So I just really enjoy his style. And Ashley came to know him from the Flight anthology. Uh, he did this story, I believe it was him who did Robot and Sparrow. And that stupid comic made me cry. So emotionally connected and tied in. It was just such a powerful, powerful little. It wasn't a long comic. It was short, really. All the comics in the Flight anthologies are relatively short. But I just remembering connecting with that art and really appreciating. So at any rate, they're putting this graphic novel Pro series on, a 10-week series, and I'm super excited about it. But one of the things that I know I have room to grow in is understanding light and dark, very much like what we've been talking about with architecture, but in the case of illustration. How do colors change based on the light that's hitting them? And it's not always what you might intuitively expect. Light is a very interesting medium. It's an artistic medium. I mean, people go get degrees in lighting design because it is so in depth, and there's so much to know and understand about how colors work together. It's not the way pigment colors work together at all. And in fact, your pigments change the way they view depending on the light that you're working in. So super important to know that. Now, what I'm going to do right here around the outside of this is I'm going to take this Q-tip that I've been using to blend, and I'm going to start to transfer some of this color to the outside door frame. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because I had a guess that this would look like aged wood, grayed out aged wood, and it sure does. So I'm happy to put that as the base. Remember, with Prismacolors, they layer really well, so you can put color on top of this. You can't completely hide what you've already put down, but you can drastically change the way that it looks. So I wasn't too worried about this not being the perfect color, because I knew it wouldn't be, but I knew that it would be a gray, muddy brown color, which is perfect for aged wood. And so I'm just getting this down as a base coat. Now, there's something else that's happening that you guys, if you don't use Turpenoid, might not be aware of. Some of this Turpenoid right now is soaking into the page. Not a lot of it, but a little bit. It's getting into the fibers of the page. Well, what happens is now that has Turpenoid in it. When I color pencil on top of it, some of that Turpenoid will actually be melting, slowly melting the colored pencil as I color on top of it. So it will actually help to blend that color and melt that color into what's already down on the page. Okay, as opposed to here, if I just color, it's going to be sitting right on the surface of the page. None of it is soaked in. Some of this color that I've just put on with the Q-tip and the Turpenoid has soaked into the page. So, and I can show you that because I'm already blending this orange outline of the door frame. It's already soaking in. I can tell because all the white gaps are getting filled in. That lets me know that the fibers of the paper are receiving it, and it's soaking down into the fibers. It's not just sitting on the top of the highest fibers on the page. So there we go. So now I've actually primed this to receive color. Now, before I proceed, I need to look at some photo reference. So I'm going to open up a new tab here on my computer, and I guess I go to Pinterest because Pinterest usually has a good amount of stuff, and I'm going to do Old Red Barn. Let's see what we get. Old Red Barn. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. You get splotchiness. Oh, this is gorgeous. I bet that's AI created. Oh, it definitely is. When I look at the roof line, that is AI to the max. That's the problem. Is like you want photo reference and you go to look and it's like, oh, I gotta turn my ad blocker off. I gotta pause on this site. Yeah. Okay. I really want actual real photographs. I don't want this AI stuff because, oh my goodness, they're doing it again. You can tell it's AI when the roof line is all jacked up and won't work architecturally. That's just one key indicator. Wow. It's getting harder and harder to find real photography. Let's do photography. Like, you just, everything's AI. That's like, even when you put in photography, it doesn't matter. They're still gonna, it's not gonna siphon out what's AI and what's not. I'm gonna try, instead of saying old red barn, what if I did antique red barn? Let's see if that changes anything. Antique red barn. No, it actually gives you pretty much the same selection of images. What if I did antique faded red barn? Let's see if that works. Here's one. That looks like a photograph. Cool. I like it. Okay, so I can't really bring this on screen right now, I don't think. Can I? Hold on. Let me see if I can. Let's see. If I shrink this down, hold on just a second. Nope, that's not doing it. Huh. Okay, well, I can't do it. But I wish I could show you the photo reference that I'm looking at, because it has a lot of gray wood, but then it has these little splotches of red paint, specifically like under the eave of the barn right here. It remained red. Well, that makes sense, because it would be more protected from the weather, from the rain and from the sunlight, because the shade would be protecting it. So that part stayed more vivid red. It still looks aged, but then the rest of the boards and the panels, these vertical boards, look very gray like this. So hey, good color choice. Awesome. Now, I've got to be careful. I'm thinking about using Fire Engine Red, which is not really Fire Engine. I'm thinking about using my Crimson Red. Okay, and I'm going to use this up at the top here. And what I notice is it's very vivid right under the eave, and then you get this kind of strayed coloring. And what I mean by that is, by drawing these vertical lines down like this, it starts to look very much like how the paint fades on the photograph. So start up here at the eave with a little bit of pressure, and then kind of I'm flicking my wrist so that that line tapers as it comes down. So it guarantees my red is darker up at the eave, and it fades as I come down. Okay, and on the photo that I'm looking at, it looks uneven as it comes down. So that's a good thing that I also get out of this technique of coloring this way. Now up here at the top, the red actually goes all the way. They also have this hayloft in the barn that I'm looking at, which is super good and helpful. It's great. And we'll just kick this color right on down. Now we got to be a little more intentional here around the puppy's head. There we go. Kicking that down. That goes there. This part is roof. Okay. I think I want the body to kind of cut up in that ear a little bit more, just to define that a little bit better. Okay. Okay. That's looking acceptable. Other places where we get red, well, ironically, the doors have a little bit more red, I guess because they are sometimes open and maybe in the shadowed areas. So now I'm going to kick some of this fire engine red in there. Get some of that color. Ooh, that was a little strong on my part there. That's all right. We'll live with it. Yeah, a little bit too much red right there. I don't like that, so I'll probably have to come back and edit it. Now, down at the bottom seems to be some red too. Not quite as much as at the top. And then in between the boards, there's little splotches of red. I guess where the paint was kind of protected from the weather and the rest of it kind of chipped off. So you get this nice little kind of pitting that's happening here, keeping some of that red paint in those creases. So that's pretty cool. Isn't it funny, by looking at something and studying it, you start to understand a little bit of the story? Like I never would have thought, like if you had asked me, hey, where, when you do this barn and you're trying to make it edged red paint, where would the paint still be, exist on an old antiqued red barn? And I would have been like, I wouldn't have even guessed, even though it makes complete sense when I look at it. Without looking at photo reference and having something to tell that story and help me understand it, I wouldn't have known. I never would have realized, oh wow, even the creasing where the wood comes together, there's going to be paint chips that sort of survived the weathering just in those creases. To me, that's super interesting. And why that matters to me as an illustrator is this probably won't be the last time I have to paint or draw something with aged timbers. In fact, for my graphic novel, I can already think, and by the way, I'm changing the wood paneling here to line it up more accurately, make it look a little bit more consistent. But in my graphic novel, portions of the island have really tattered homes piecemealed together with things like shipping crates and old boards and flotsam from the ocean, and it's just a poor fishing village, and so aged wood and painted items that have been weathered in storms for years and years and years are going to be part of the visual tapestry that I'm weaving. So this information now stays with me. Okay, where boards are nailed together, their paint is going to stay in those creases, or any part that gets protected by the weather, like under the eaves of a roof, that's going to allow that paint to hang on longer. And without spending time with this image and thinking through those things, that would have never been in my visual toolbox, but now it is. And man, I've been doing this for a long time. It just so happens I've never been called to think about this to this degree before working on this particular art piece. So my education increases with each artistic piece that I create, and that's super cool. I always try to tell my students, hey, you're learning something now for this particular assignment, but how might you use what you're learning on a piece of artwork that you create later, or something that you're going to do on your own that you really getting excited about? Because I'll be honest, some of the activities we do in art are really skills focused. And the reason why is I don't get a lot of time with my students. We're on a 6-day schedule, so I see them once, not even once a week. So I'll see them maybe 6 or 7 times in a quarter, which means I'd see them 24 times maybe in the year, for the entire year. And you're talking about a 45-minute class, right? So 24 45-minute classes over the span of the year, and with end-of-year testing and different field trips and parties like that, it's more likely that I'll see them about 20 classes in a year. That's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time. And so what I believe is the best use of our time, I hope I'm right on this, is to build their skills, like fundamental skills, skills in observation, like understanding complementary colors, warm and cool colors, tertiary colors, those things, observational, space, form, shape, line, types of lines, composition, juxtaposition, right, emphasis, all those things, rhythm, all of the different things that come into play in art. I want to teach them those things, but try to teach them as building blocks for things that they can create when they're on their own. Because for students who are interested in art, they love being in art class. It's one of their favorite classes at school, of course, because they're passionate about it and they're into it and it's what they think about and they do. But it doesn't even come close to satisfying the itch for an artist. They're going to come in there, they're going to get a taste of something, and then they're going to want more, and they're not going to get it for another 5 or 6 days. And then when they get done, it's sort of like then you got to wait again. And if you've ever been passionate about anything, let's say you love video games, and imagine only being able to play for 45 minutes once every 6 days. A video game that you love. Imagine a game like Fallout 4 or a Red Dead Redemption or something like that. And somebody told you, sorry, you can only play this for 45 minutes one time every 6 days. That would drive you crazy. That would drive you crazy. It'd drive anybody crazy. But this is what we do in school. And I think that this is something that we could remedy a lot earlier for students who are interested in art, who really love it, like that's their favorite subject, that they could somehow, some way find it in their hearts to change the schedule where maybe they're not super talented in music, not that they don't need music, but it's just not their primary interest and not where they're going to grow the most. And I say this because I think of art in my situation as being very unique in this way. I can go weeks or months or even years without actively applying myself and practicing, and my perception is still growing because it's the way I'm wired. So I can come back and draw, and I can apply new things I learned even while I wasn't actually practicing the skill of drawing. But it's similar for musicians. Like, they can grow musically even if they're not actually physically practicing with an instrument. And this has actually been proven true in psychology. So they've done this with athletes, and they've given athletes the opportunity to practice warming up for free throws, and then they've given another group of athletes just time to visualize themselves shooting free throws. The people who sat there, the athletes that sat there and visualized themselves shooting free throws, shot more accurately than the people that had been going through the motion of actually doing the thing. That is so amazing. Now, obviously, you have to practice. There's no way. It's not like the point of that study or the meaning behind that study is that you never have to practice free throws and you're going to be a great free throw shooter. That's not true. The people that were shooting free throws were already good at shooting free throws. It was already in their skill set. It was in their mindset. They already understood how to do that. And for in those scenarios, people are going to grow even despite the fact that they're not actually doing it. So does that then nullify the argument of what I'm saying is that we should have more art for those that love art and more music for those who love music earlier on in their education? I realize later on in your education, in the high school and college years, obviously you get to specialize. But I mean, even at a young age, I think there's some value in giving them more experiences, right? Because the reality is the art room is going to provide the best art experiences for these students. You're not going to get the same level of experience at that age in the music room as you do. Or I don't want to, it's so hard, right? Because kids need PE, right? They do. And even artists need PE. Even the ones who don't like PE need PE. I'm not one of those people who is super passionate about working out and doing those things. In fact, I'm probably the opposite of passionate. I probably, when I work out, I do it reluctantly, and I do it most when it has another added benefit to it. Like I love chopping wood. Okay, we've got a wood stove at our house and we need wood, and I like chopping wood, and it's a great workout. I love playing softball or baseball after having chopped wood for like a month because I can hit the ball so much more powerfully. Okay, so but those workouts when I'm chopping wood doesn't just make me stronger, right? It allows me to warm the house up. It allows me to get outdoors and breathe fresh air, and there are just more benefits to it than just the workout itself. So I like that. I feel like I'm getting more value out of it that way. But there are kids who don't love physical fitness, right? I still think they need to take PE. I still think it's very valuable to have some physical fitness program and regimentation. I also think students need more PE time. I really do. I feel students as a whole need time to be actively running, especially as younger. Now, I think as you get older and older, you still got to be active. I don't think there's a way that you can replace that. And I think that students, personally, like we talk about how students need math, and they go to math every day, and they need language arts, and they go to language arts every day, and they need social studies or history, and they do that, and they need science. We talk about this, but I'll be completely honest with you. I am not geared toward the sciences. Because I'm not geared toward the sciences, I'm not trying to diminish the value of the sciences as a whole. We need the sciences. It's important. That's not the question. Question is, did my time in science class benefit my development? And I would contend and say absolutely not. Not at all. My time trying to learn how to balance chemical equations is completely lost, because if you asked me to do it today, I couldn't do it. If you ask me if it has ever come into the realm of my life, it doesn't. It never has. And I don't foresee that it ever will. And if it does come into my life, at whatever capacity it is coming into my life, somebody much more knowledgeable and understanding is going to be in my pathway to walk me through it. That's just the way life works. So when I look at that and say, well, would I have benefited more from taking those science classes, or would I have benefited more from time in art? And obviously, look at what I'm doing. This is like it's undeniable to me that I would have gotten way more value out of time spent creating, learning, growing in what I was designed and made to do. Now, for some people, it may not be that easy. It may be very difficult to tell what someone was designed to do. And I think if you don't know, it's great. You just get a wide variety of things, and you grow in those and see if there's anything that interests you. But I think when you have scenarios of students who are passionate about something, they really take to it. They show an aptitude for it. They enjoy it. I think it's important to kind of meet that need and not just stick them in a funnel that's not really helping to develop the core characteristics that they're going to be working in for their life. In the photo right underneath this little piece of wood here that's framing the hayloft, there's more protection, and sure enough, this paint is there. Man, that is already starting to look aged. That's really cool. Now, this red on the barn that I'm looking at also has a bit of an orangish brown, so I'm going to take this sienna brown, which is kind of a reddish brown. I'm going to kick in some color on top of that. And that's going to mute it a little bit. I think I'm okay with that. I'm being kind of careful to not go right to the edges of the board when I'm coloring. So I'm leaving a little bit of a gap. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a bit of a 3D feel for these boards. When I come back and put the crease, the space in between each board with black later on, that's really going to punch out the edges of these boards and give it a three-dimensional feel. Now, it may not be super obvious on camera right now, but it's going to look like a little bit of white space in there in between those boards. You'll see how that comes back into play later on to make those look three-dimensional, which is really cool. All right, now back in here behind these animals, I may darken this up a little bit more just to punch out the animals since they're a huge part of the focus on this piece. I want to give them their due respect and honor there. Punch them out a little bit more. Now I want this darkness underneath the eave, right underneath the eave, to be growing as I'm coloring. So I'm going to keep continuing punching that out and darkening that as I go to give it that real good 3D pop. Also, where these white lines where the boards come together, we can just go ahead and go right over top of that because the shadow detail is going to knock them, knock a lot of that information out. Again, because it's daytime, these spaces underneath the eaves are going to be particularly dark because the brighter the sunshine, obviously the harsher the shadows. There's not a cloud in the sky, so you're not going to get that nice, soft, diffused lighting that you would normally get. Oh. Yep, I got to go get some more wood today. My brother-in-law and I have been chopping wood at one of his neighbor's properties. He had tree service come out and, man, cut down some big trees, some hardwood trees. And we've just been out there kind of bit by bit. We'll go, once or twice a week over there and get our chainsaws, cut it into sections, go out, split the wood. And now yesterday we were splitting wood for a couple of hours, and we got a huge pile. And now we're each going to take our trucks over there, load it up in the back of our trucks, and bring it back to the house and stack it for the winter, next winter. Can't use it this winter. This is our first year with a wood stove, and I had no idea how much wood we would be going through. So anytime we get an opportunity to go get some firewood now, I'm excited about that. So at any rate, he's asking about when we're going to go get our firewood. So I probably need to respond to that. And I'm also getting to a good point where I'm ready to take a break here. Maybe freshen up coffee, maybe get a bite to eat. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back later to do my practice exercises for Graphic Novel Pro. I plan on doing that in the evenings, so later on today I'll probably hop back on and work on that. I'll probably also progress on this off screen today as well. But thank you guys for joining. I hope you enjoyed. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Ask any questions that you might have, please, and I'll try to respond in the comments. Sometimes I don't get notifications from YouTube in a very timely way, but within a few days, hopefully, I'll be able to respond to you. So, as always, have a great day.